Welcome back. So today I want to put a health bar on top of our enemy. Pop down to user interface, right click, user interface, create widget blueprint. This is going to be called HUD_enemy. Let's pop into there. Our size is not going to fill the screen. It's going to be a custom size. Let's start with about 350. All estimates. We will play with this later as needed. Let's get ourselves a vertical box. Throw that on top of the canvas panel and fill out that vertical box 350. Inside the vertical box, let's grab text. We'll center that text up. And let's grab a progress bar because we'll also put the name of our enemy in there as well. We'll set fill and drop down the size of this to about 15. However big you want it, it's completely up to you. So this will be our enemy name. And let's go and put enemy name in there now. We want the color of our bar to be red. So 1 on red, 0 on green, 0 on blue. And then let's go up to progress 0.5 so we know what it's going to look like. And let's create a binding. Remember to name the binding, even though it's a brand new HUD. Get health. Let's add a variable. This variable is going to be reference character. I'm going to call it character now because if you want to apply this HUD to an NPC, you can do that as well. It's not necessarily an enemy. For the variable type, which is down here, let's go character object reference. With that character reference, we're going to cast to enemy base. We could do this as a pure cast as well, and we might as well convert to pure cast. And then off of that, let's get health actual and get health max. Because our enemy might have more than 100 health at some point too, depending on the enemy's experience. Divide health actual by health max. Just like this. Just like we did in our actual hero character. And that's pretty much good to go. But you might be asking, where are we getting this reference character from? We will answer that question in just a moment. Let's create one more binding. Go to enemy name, create binding. We're going to get our reference character again, cast to enemy base, right click, pure cast. And now we would get a name off of here. But we don't have a name variable yet. So let's pop back over to the test map, over to blueprints. If we assume that every single one of our characters, both NPC, enemy, and player, will have a name at some point, then let's go and put that in base character. Add a variable, call it name, and make it a text value. We can even drag to the top. So compile and save that. And for a default, we'll call this base character. And we'll need to change this per character. Let's go and give our enemy a name now. Click on enemies, enemy base. We need to also compile and save this. You can see that little star there telling us we need to do that. You can see the name has popped up. So let's call this base enemy. Again, this won't pop up in our actual game because we'll never actually use the base enemy or the base character. It's just there to give us a blueprint of what we want to have in our characters. So let's rename this function to get name, drag off of enemy base and get name. And connect that there. Compile, save. So we can close base character for now. Let's go back over to enemy base. Now inside the enemy base here, we're going to go to the event begin play. We'll get rid of begin overlap. We don't need that just now. In the viewport, we're going to add a component and that's going to be a widget. Come over to the right here and you can see widget class. We're going to select HUD enemy. And now you can see that that's popped up. It's a little bit big, so we can drop down. We can do that over here in scale. So let's change the scale to about 0.5. And because that little lock is there, all of them will change. And then we'll move the HUD over so it's centered. That looks pretty good. Let's compile and save that. Over to the event graph. Let's get that widget. Let's also rename this to enemy HUD, compiling and saving that. Get user widget object. It's asking to replace that. It doesn't need to. Probably just a small little glitch. And now with that get user widget object, we can drag out of that and cast to HUD enemy. I don't know why it's coming up as a shout. Now you may have remembered that we did this earlier on, where we set the reference after the fact or as we started the editor, because the HUD is not going to know who it's attached to until that character is spawned. So now off of HUD enemy, we can set character reference. Let me turn off set character reference. Don't need caps lock on. And when we set character reference, that character reference is going to be self. So that's going to happen as soon as our character spawns into the world. Now over in the map, if we click on the character, we can see that the health bar is only facing this way. So we're going to leave it like that because we don't want to have to be standing in front of the enemy for the health bar to look at us. We actually want that health bar to follow us around. So to do that, back over in enemy base, we're going to use the event tick. Notice I didn't get rid of it, and if you did, you just type in event tick and it'll come up. So remember I said we don't want to use the event tick when we can avoid it. This is one of those applications where we will use it. However, we will be turning it on and off. You can actually turn off and on the event tick as needed. So what we want for this is the enemy HUD, and we need a reference to our hero. So to get that hero reference, let's go over here, get player character, cast to B_hero, and promote to variable reference hero. Now with our hero reference, we'll drag that down here. For our HUD, we need to get world location. For our hero, we need to get actor location. And with these two vectors, we're going to find, look at rotation, which is going to give us a start and a target. The start is where our enemy HUD is. The target is our actor location. Then we're going to break rotator, make rotator, because the only thing we need is our Z axis. Then we're going to copy over our HUD, and we're going to set world rotation. That rotation is going to be the end of this rotator. And the executable is going to come from our event tick. So that should mean that when we go into the world, we can see that health right there. It's crooked, but it's following us around, which is exactly what we want. And if I shoot, the health is represented. You can see it says base enemy, which is also something we wanted, and it disappears with the actor. So as a solution to your enemy HUD not being centered when you rotate with it, set your location to 0, 0, 0 across the board. And I've changed the pivot to 0.3. I'm not entirely sure why it's not lining up, as when I did the test project, it did work. So I will come back to you with a solution to that, as I do with lots of things. But for now, 0.3 looks pretty damn close to the center. That means that now when we go into the world, it is staying above our character. So there's two things we could do with this now. The first thing is we can set this to only be visible when we enter a certain proximity. That proximity can be controlled by a sphere. So if we go up here and we type in sphere, sphere collision, not attached to our enemy HUD, we just want it to be on its own. And if we zoom out there and give the sphere a big radius like so. Let's try 1,000. Then when we walk into this radius, that is when we can set the visibility. The way we would do that, just for those of you who are happy with that solution, is right click, add event, on component begin overlap. Again, right click, on component end overlap. And again, like we've done a million times before, get the hero reference, check if the other actor is equal to the hero reference. I know this is a lot of work for a hypothetical, but I know that some of you will be very happy with the solution. So we'll run with this for now. When we enter the sphere, we will grab the enemy HUD, set visibility to true, and then set it to false when we leave. And then the only other thing we need to do is grab enemy HUD, type in visible up here with that selected, and turn off that checkbox under rendering. So now we can't see it, and when we step into it, we can see it. It starts being visible as we get close to the enemy. And you can adjust this radius as much as you want. One other thing I would add is set actor tick enabled. And self is fine, and we set enabled there, and we set disabled there, so that this tick isn't running when we are not in the sphere, because we don't need to adjust for the rotation if that's set to be invisible. And then again, we just need to come over to class defaults, clear out our search, and start with tick enabled should be false. So now we'll compile, save, pop back in there. And now we can see the health bar following us around, and when we leave, it stops. So that could work. However, the reason I wouldn't necessarily recommend this is because depending on how complicated your game is, having that many ticks running at the same time could be detrimental to your performance. Again, depends on your target machine. If you're targeting 5950Xs and 3090s or 6900 XTs, then maybe it's not going to be an issue. But I'm assuming that the idea of your game running on, say, a Steam Deck is something that you might want to consider at some point, even if it is 720, 30 frames. Little things like that. Should I be running 1,000 event ticks when I know that I need to put it on budget hardware? So that's the first solution, and it's up to you how you want to do that. Again, the performance might not be 100% detrimental. It might only be a few frames, and games obviously jump around in frames. But that's one solution there. The other solution, which is what I've done in my own personal project at the moment, is to actually use the mark key, which we will set up in another episode because I guarantee we've run out of time already, so that when you look at an enemy, you can press a button, and in your game world, it's as if your character is scanning for the abilities of that enemy, and it's something that can be unlockable later, so you don't necessarily get the health of an enemy straight away. But we will set that up in another episode, and let me know if you're interested down in the comments in that too. I will probably do it anyway, but if there's huge interest for it, I might even do it in the very next episode. So let's leave it there for now, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.